So it's finally here, Cocoon 3.0. So let's dive in and have a look at everything that is new. So we're going to open it up. We'll go through the setup wizard nice and quickly. A lot of this has just been streamlined. There's been some nice UI overhauls from version 2. So we can now pick our accent color as part of the onboarding wizard. And these are some really nice pastel-y colors. However, I really like the Cocoon green. I think it just fits with the system. And then you can also set your light theme, your dark, or your OLED. And if you know me, we're going to take advantage of that OLED. So importing games already is infinitely faster than it was. I believe that a lot of this most recent update to Cocoon 3.0 has been focused around optimization, and already you can see it's leaps and bounds ahead from where it was originally. So normally when setting up a front end such as Cocoon, I would import my ESDE media. However, Moth has stated that the scraping is a lot faster than it was. So I'm going to test that out. So we'll start scraping now. So this is also new, so we can now set the home screen grid as part of the onboarding wizard. Quite a lot of text for a little grub to shout. So you can see we can adjust the kind of default layout that you'll go for. You can always change this by pinching, or if you click your left stick. I quite like the 4x4. I think that takes up the screen nicely, so I'll stick with that. There we go. So we'll allow it to send notifications, and the first thing I want to do is mute the background music, because it's nice, but I'm just not a fan of background music at all. So there we go. Here we are in Cocoon. So if you've never seen Cocoon before, please remove the rock that you've been living under, but welcome regardless. So you can see already, if you're coming from Cocoon 2.0, just how much cleaner and nicer. There's definitely been a lot of kind of a UI overhaul. We've changed a lot of these badges. Things just look more punchy and cool. We press our X button, we can swap our screens, which is always very handy, and we can use our Y button as like our options menu. You can also tap the little icons that are here. So the first thing I want to do as well is, so one thing that I did notice, and I think it's a little bit odd, but something that can be easily sorted at a later date. So we have these apps here. These are called pods. These are basically the widgets that will come with Cocoon. So they're not all available. So I think Leaflet is still in development, whereas I think Picnic, Log, Silk, and Flutter, these are all currently available. So not only are they here, they're also in this system app folder, and they're also on this little widgets, this little pods button here. So it does seem a little redundant. So I'd probably maybe ask as part of the onboarding to say, just where do you want us to put them? Here, a folder, or I just like leaving them on this little quick access. So I'm going to use my Y button, and I'm just going to remove these shortcuts because they're already here. We don't need them. I'm also going to remove that folder as well, because it looks kind of ugly being this blank folder in the middle of nowhere. So all I was doing then, pressing the Y button and then going through the selection. So now I'm going to edit the grid slightly because it's gone a bit skew-if. So I'm going to press my start button, edit the grid. So this is a much nicer way to edit the grid. We can just drag and pop games wherever we like. If you want to have specific system rows or a really crazy layout with loads of gaps in between, then you are more than welcome to do. So I'm just going to move everything over. There we go. So already just so much easier as it used to be. You kind of press and hold, or you can edit the folder and drag, and it was a little clunky, whereas being able to do it this way with the full edit grid option is just so much simpler, so much easier. And these are stored as well. So obviously if you change them, because this can be quite cool just to have everything on a like a single row, then you can do it that way. We can also, you can tap here and then use the A to Z automatic, the recently played, most played. However, if you do use any of these, it does remove the ability to manually edit the grid layout. But I'm trying to stick with my, we've got, actually it's actually not a 4x4, it's a 5x4, so I stand corrected. So firstly, let's look at setting up some themes, the reason that you're all here for Cocoon. So we'll press our little pods icon, we'll load up Silk. So this is our theme interface. So I know what themes I like, so I'm just going to go to Browse All Asset Packs. Now, I did have someone comment on my video that they couldn't find the PB Mini icon pack that I always use. So I'll just show you, that definitely does exist. So I'm going to get the ECU gradient overlays because they're really cool. These are the little console overlays, so it has like the little console logo in the corner. So you can see up there it's installing. You can also use your Y button to give it a little thumbs up. Although that doesn't seem to be doing anything. So that doesn't seem to be doing anything. So that's one for the to-dos. So here's the icon pack I use. This is the PB Mini icon pack, which is by Linked, who is one of the UI designer for Cocoon. So we'll give that a moment to install. And then I'm also looking for these simple wash heroes and logos. This is just for the top screen. I just like having things quite simple. Obviously, there's an absolute plethora of themes available, so make sure you have a nosy, see what fits you. I do believe there's going to be some refinements to the theme store, because I think there's some concern around people using copyrighted assets. Not 100% on that, just something I did come across in the Discord. So do be wary that your favourite themes might not be available if they're using some stolen assets. So now that's done, I'm going to back out and we'll press our start button to get to our settings, and you can browse down here, or as you can see, there's little glyphs here. You can just hit start again, and that will take you to the settings. So now we're in the settings menu. We're going to work our way through it. So starting with the customization and the personalization, we'll set those themes. So I've already set my theme in the onboarding. For overlays, ECU gradient. For the smart folder icons, so this is the actual icons on the folders, we'll go for our PB Mini. For the smart folder logos, this is to do with the logos at the top image. So this is where I go for the simple wash for both the logos and the heroes. The hero is the big image, the logo is the logo. There is also themes for things like background music and sound effects, but I don't tend to bother too much with them. Once you've done that as well, you can export your settings as a single theme as a backup. So if you ever wipe your device or you want to move it over to another device, then you can just import the work you've already done and save yourself a lot of time. So once that's done, we'll press Y and that will confirm it. You do need to make sure you press Y. I believe if you just back out, it won't apply it. So now if we head back to the menu, you can see that I've got some icons here. Don't have 3DO, which isn't a surprise because no one had 3DO, so I don't blame them for not making one yet. But you can see already I've got these gorgeous little icons. I've got my logo, and then the image behind it is the hero. And that took no time at all. And even whilst I've been doing all this, our scraping for 166 games has just finished. So that is about 4 or 5 minutes, which is infinitely faster than what it was originally. So if I open up a system, you can see I've already got my artwork. I've got my little overlays on there as well, the ECU overlays. I've got all my artworks, and that is just so much quicker than it was originally. So back to the settings. So we can change our accent color from here, you can change your cursor style, and I do like how they've added some previews, because I think that when I was first using Cocoon, and one of the things I did recommend to the guys actually, and they said that they totally understood, was all these settings, I didn't really know what they were referring to, so I was just kind of blind. So I was playing around with them, and then not really understanding what I was changing. So this is brand new for this release candidate, for the public release candidate. So we have this highlight thickness, so you can change the thickness of the highlight. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be reflected in the preview, but I quite like the default thickness. It's nice and chunky. Although you can actually see it here as well, so you don't really need the preview. Maybe that's a little too chunky. 70% I think is nice. We have our surface material, so we have solid or we have glass, which gives it like that kind of glass shimmer. I know that Apple has done the liquid glass, and that's been some quite mixed reactions, but if that's something you're into, then that is an option as well. And also you can go into these options and you can customize the transparency and the blur, the refraction and how the light kind of spreads across it, the tint, although kind of annoyingly you do have to kind of keep dragging back up. As if you move down via controller, it's going to shift everything down, but that's just nitpicky, that's minor stuff. It's not going to ruin anyone's day. So we'll leave those as is. So for icon style, you can have the coloured, the accent, or the flat. I just like leaving them on the coloured, but if you want like a nice flat kind of cool monochrome aesthetic, then you've got those options as well. And obviously you can customize any of these. You can set your jingles, which I've covered in other videos, so be sure to check those out. We've also got on now playing screen on the bottom, which I'm a huge fan of. So I don't like how it goes completely black, so I like kind of having it round about 40%. So it kind of greys, but it's not completely off. You can also set the transparency of the title. I like knocking this up a little bit so you can still see quite clearly the logo. You can add a little bit of colour saturation if you don't want it to be fully black and white. I quite like having a little bit. I think 30% is a nice sweet spot. You can also separately set the brightness, which I really like as well. So we'll knock that up a bit as well. And you've also got this fade, so if you want it to have like a little bit of a kind of slight gradient on the bottom just to give it a little bit of depth, then you can do that. And you can also adjust the size. So being able to control this is excellent. So you can also disable and enable the top pills, your friends list, your battery, Wi-Fi, that kind of thing. And you can enable and disable the achievement pop-ups in the game as well. So we'll enable our battery percentage. So most of this has just come leaps and bounds ahead. So I won't cover absolutely everything, I'll be here all day, but you get the gist. So obviously we've got our ESDE integration, and I believe this has been upgraded as well. I won't cover it now because obviously I've just scraped everything manually, which was fast enough. So there is this option to prioritize ESDE. So if you've already got ESDE artwork that you prefer, it will pick that instead. And if you kind of flip between them, it can keep things in sync as well, which is kind of handy. You've got your platforms list here. So if you want to add a console that you've just added games for, you can add it from here. You can set your default player. Helps if I pick one with more than one option. So you make sure you've got your right RetroArt core. So for example, I use MGBA. So that's all nice. Again, I think you do have to, if I change something and then back out, it doesn't persist. So you need to make sure that any changes you do, you tap this little tick or you press your Y button. I have said to the guys, and I've mentioned it before, that it should, like some things, if you back out, it should flag an option if you've changed options to say, whoa, 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 you've got unsaved changes. But again, that's all minor stuff that pretty simple to implement, but it's low priority. But it's much more user-friendly than it was. We've got our integrations here, so we can set our notifications, so you can have your native system notifications that would normally go to the Android UI. You can have them appear in Cocoon. However, there's a little bit of a kind of quirk to it. So if we enable it and proceed, it's going to take us to this Cocoon screen. So what's going to happen is, the way you have to do this, if you tap allow, you need to make sure you get this little pop-up that says it's a restricted setting, because if you don't, it won't allow us to do what I'm going to do next. So if we back out, and then I'm going to swipe down, and I'm just going to go open my settings. I'm going to go to apps, I'm going to go to Cocoon, and we've got these three little dots up here. If you didn't get that restricted pop-up, these won't appear. So you need to kind of force it. They'll only appear when it toggles that. And we're just going to press allow restricted settings. And then if we head back to Cocoon, we'll go back to those settings. And then I tick it again, and then I should be able to go into Cocoon, and there I can allow it now. So you're going to get this little pop-up, so we'll allow that. And then when we back out, it's now ticked. Next, we'll dive into Discord, nice and simple. Scroll down and authorize it. Now, I do believe that one of the planned options was to be able to send messages and things like that directly from Cocoon. However, I believe that's not in the terms of service of the Discord API. I could be incorrect with that. So it just shows you your friends in-game. You can also do the same for your Steam, which I won't do now. We also have a single screen mode, so I'll be exploring this at the end of the video on the Odin 3. So you can also set some options this way. And like I said earlier, similar to the theme, you can back up your entire setup, and then you can always re-import it, which I advise you do if you get a setup that you really, really like, just in case anything goes wrong and you need to restore, or if you get a new device or you want to migrate to another device, you've always got your Cocoon set up nice. So if we just head back to scraping, so for scraping, we have some additional scrapers. We've now got how long to beat, which has automatically been implemented. You don't need an API key. I believe they've had a chat with the guys at How Long to Beat, and they've got some sort of semi-official way of doing it. We've also got Launchbox, which has its own metadata library. Some of the metadata I think is quite good. Some of it I don't think is great. So you can just, if you press your left and right arrows, you can set your priorities, but I would just leave them as they are for now. And then if you ever need to re-scrape, you can just come to this menu and do a scrape. So it doesn't look like the retro achievements have scraped. So I'm going to do a quick retro achievement scrape. So what I will do is we'll go to scrape. I won't scrape the metadata. I won't scrape the media. I'll just scrape the achievements. Not too sure what the difference is between the two toggles, but I'll leave them both enabled just in case. And then we'll do it for all platforms. So you can see it is absolutely flying through, which if you use previous versions of Cocoon, you'd know that Scraper could sometimes take a little bit of time. So it's always good to know that it's been vastly improved. So you can see we're nearly done. And it's taken, what, 30 seconds roundabout? And then hopefully this will match to our achievements. So there, we've now got our little achievements icon. So if we go to again, so we've got Chrono Trigger here, so we can press our select button to get different views. So I've got my little achievements icon here. I've got my metadata, so you can see it's quite small on camera, but there's a little How Long to Beat here, 23.1 hours to beat and 42.2 hours to fully complete. So you've also got your trailer and your screenshots. I believe the screenshots just connect to YouTube, but if you right click, you get this nice full screen trailer. I do believe they'll be adding the gameplay videos at some point. I haven't tested those out myself too much, but that's, I know something a lot of other front ends have started implementing as well, which is cool. So we press our select button again. You now get your achievements list, although I don't seem to be able to actually scroll. I can scroll the achievements, but I can't. Doesn't seem to be able to work tapping them. So obviously this is still in early release, so there will be some bugs and stuff to come, like bug fixes and stuff to come. So not the end of the world. And what you can always do instead is if you hover over a game, press your Y button, you can go down to achievements, and then you can just view them all here. From here, you can also add games to your home. So we've got Beavis and Butthead there. So if you want to create a nice little layout with some of your favourite games that are pinned, then you can do that as well. You can also add folders and things like that, so you can really make the most of your gorgeous new home screen. Let's add a widget. We've got some widgets. We've got clock, we've got recently played, we've got a music player, we've got last played, we've got picnic, playtime, we've got retro achievements. We've got to have the retro achievements profile, surely. And then we can use the arrow keys or the D-pad to have this as big or small as we want. So I quite like a nice medium size. So if we drag that here, you can just kick out a load of the icons that I spent so long before. So it's cool. Quite like how ECU's gone with the kind of integrated widgets within the grid itself. Then obviously this looks probably a little bit messy right now, but you can play around with this to your heart's content. And there's also image pins, so if you've got custom images or GIFs you want to add, then you can do that as well. So we've also got our dock down here, which has had some significant improvements. So if we come along and we just click on a blank slot, we can add Discord, and then what you can do from here is if you hover over and you press your Y button, you can set if you want to launch it on your main display or not. By default, these will just launch on the bottom screen. So if I just demonstrate that now, so it's going to open on the bottom. And if I change that, it's going to open on the top. So you can set that on a per app basis for the dock. And if you ever need to clear them, it's nice and easy. You can just go back over and then clear the slot and then confirm it. So loads of improvements for the dock. So we'll boot into a game and we'll look at the now playing screen. So I'll just grab Contra. So obviously I've got access to my dock down here. You can see that my now playing screen has faded out a little bit. It's still got a little bit of the saturation. And then if I give it a tap, everything springs back to life and I can see my achievements and I can access my pods. So if you're playing something like Game Native, you've got this little keyboard app, so you need to allow it first. But you've got this on-game on game. But you've got this on-screen keyboard and then your pad, your trackpad, and then trackball as well. So I don't think I've set up the correct core. So what I'm going to do, if I just exit out of RetroArch. So one thing I advise you do when you start is do make sure, if you go to your library and data, just do have a quick look and make sure that the cores that you normally use or that are installed are active. There we go, so it's Nestopia, so I use Meson. So I would like to see if there's some sort of active check to see what cores are installed. I believe that RetroArch can expose those, and then it should throw up a warning that says, whoa, 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 you don't have this core installed. But again, these are just suggestions I'm just throwing out there. So if the guys are watching, then add it to your to-dos. So we'll load up Castlevania, and then there you go, you can see it's jumped straight into the game now. And I've got my little achievements here. You can see that I've beaten the first boss. I need to finish this game. I was getting quite into it. Never properly played Castlevania, but I do enjoy it. So just finally, one thing to know as well is the Cocoon have changed the way they interpret their multi-disc games. So they've moved over to a system called files as folders, which is the exact same thing as what ESDE is. So what that means is rather than have your normal multi-disc playlist point to your discs, you have all that inside a folder. The folder has the same name as the playlist file, and then it uses that and it passes the whole thing over to the emulator. Quite technical, don't worry too much about it, but if you do want a quick and easy way to sort these out, you can download my app, MIMIR, which has a little toolkit in there. So this is my app, MIMIR, and this will help you organize those ROMs. So you can browse your files, and all you need to do is, rather than use the other front-end target, just use the ESDE. I will update this so it's a bit more appropriately named to the front ends, but for now you can just use the ESDE one and it should just work. Obviously, any bugs, any issues, you can let me know in the comments below. So don't worry, single screen gamers, you have not been forgotten about. So Cocoon has had some significant updates to the single screen experience as well. A lot of them the same as the dual screens experience. You don't get the full functionality, obviously, but it does have some cool little features. So especially, I think having a single row looks great on a single screen device. It's just really, really smooth. And also I like that when you do change the size of the grid, the little hero image at the top with the logo does shift to take advantage of the screen real estate. So by default, it will detect you're on a single screen. You don't have to go in and change the settings. But if you do want to disable that and see what it looks like, you can come down to your settings, go to System Advanced, and then you just change this toggle. So how does this actually look? It's missing a lot. So I'd stick with the single screen for now. So there we are, that is Cocoon 3.0 on dual screen devices and single screen devices. The guys have done such great work, so make sure to join their Ko-Fi and to show your support. You can download this from OBTAINIUM. By the time this video goes up, it will be released. So let me know what you thought of it in the comments. If you like this video, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe. I've got all sorts of content about all things emulation, retro handhelds, and coming soon, the Steam Machine. So take care, and I'll see you next time.